So my name is Linda Epstein, and my book is Repairing the World. It's my debut middle grade. So I'm a brand new author, which is exciting, but I'm not a brand new literary agent. I'm also an agent at Emerald City Literary, which is based in Seattle. And I represent books for children and teens. So I've been doing that for like over a dozen years. And now I'm on the other side of it as an author, which is really exciting. And Repairing the World is realistic contemporary. I like to think of it as kind of sprinkled with a little bit of fairy dust. It's not quite magical realism, but there's maybe some fairy dust in there. And it's a story about a girl who loses her best friend. And the year after that, the book is really about her grieving and healing. I was surprised that I wrote that book. That wasn't the book I intended to write, but that's the one that ended up on the page. And yeah, I hope people love it.
What's the book you intended to write?
Well, the book that I thought I was going to write was tentatively entitled Weirdos. And everyone was like, I'd read that book. Wouldn't matter. I didn't even have to tell them, excuse me, what it was about. Everyone wanted to read a book called Weirdos. So the book that I thought I was going to write was about a girl who felt that her family didn't fit in to the town that they lived in. So, and then I didn't write that book. I wrote a different book. Yeah.
There's still time.
I guess, yeah. I could always go back to, I don't know, I think that was like a very specific time in my life when maybe I was feeling that. So that's probably why I started to write that book. And then it ultimately wasn't as interesting as the book that I wrote. So, yeah.
We're going to talk all kinds of about all kinds of stuff. We'll talk about Repairing the World, which esteemed audience can be ordering right now. Is probably available on the device you're listening to us on. Esteemed audience, get your copy. I just saw my friend Jerry Gordon not long ago when I told him I was going to be talking to you, and he wrote a book called Breaking the World. And so we've got Breaking the World. Linda's got Repairing the World. Now we just need somebody to write Maintaining the World, and we can box set.
If we could really just maintain the world, we'd be in good shape. There we go. book or no book, right?
So you wanted to be a writer since you were a kid, right? What's your first memory of wanting to be an author?
I think that, like many girls my age, and I'm older than a lot of debut middle grade authors, Little Women was my favorite book, and I really just resonated with Jo March, who was a writer. So I think that she just seemed like the most interesting character in that book. I mean, because ostensibly that was Louisa May Alcott, so she made herself the most interesting character. But that so I think that that I really looked to her. But interestingly, I didn't start writing fiction until I was way older. I'm not one of these people who've been writing stories since I was a kid. I wrote poetry from the time I was a teenager through college. And then after college, I went to get a master's actually in poetry. And halfway through, I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And then I kind of stopped writing for about 10 years and then started writing poetry again. And then after that, I had this like midlife crisis where I kind of decided I needed to do whatever the big thing was with my life. So I started writing again, and instead of poetry, I started writing fiction, which was a total surprise to me. I always wanted to write a novel. I kind of thought like, oh, I've got a novel in me. And then whenever I would sit down to write something, it would be like a page and a half. I guess it's another poem. So that's kind of, that's kind of how it went for me. And also because I was a writer, it's what had me start to work in publishing, because I knew that when I was looking for like the big thing for myself, that I was going to go back to my first and true love, which is books and reading. So I wanted to just work with books and writers. And I didn't I think being an agent actually stopped me from writing for a long time, because every time I would sit down to write something, I'd write down like 5 words and I'd be like, no, that's not good because, and it's like the long list of all the reasons why, I would reject manuscripts. So it was hard to get past my own, inner critic. So it wasn't so easy to get here for me.
Literary agent paralyzed by a fear of being rejected by literary agents.
Rejected by myself. It was like I couldn't even get the words down on the page. Nothing. It was like nothing was good enough, really. Every kind of like fault that I would, as an agent, you read hundreds upon hundreds and upon hundreds of queries and manuscripts, and you only really end up taking on about 1% of them. So you see a lot of things that are good but not good enough, as well as just okay or downright terrible. There's not a lot of downright terrible, honestly. I think I can see potential in almost anything, but it's hard to get out of your own way when you have that the critic brain at work, but you have to have as an agent. So yeah.
Gotcha. So if it's not getting too personal, what happened when you were writing poetry in college that made you stop?
So it was in the master's program, and it was I had always written poetry viscerally. So really it came from, and still does come from, my own emotions and experience. And when I was in this master's program, it was very kind of intellectual and academic. And I think it was just the wrong program for me. So when I decided to leave the program, I think like in a way, I just felt like my creativity had been squashed out of me. And it took a while for that to bounce back. I didn't completely stop writing, but I write a lot of poetry now, for for the adult audience, not for kids. But so yeah, I self-published a book of chapbook, so of poetry, which is kind of exciting. Yeah.
When did you do that?
This year. So yeah, it's called like RE colon, like kind of like regarding. And it's just like a very slim volume. I'm going to I'm in the midst of putting up buy links on my author web page, which is lindaepsteinauthor.com. I think that's it. Oh my gosh, probably should know that, but
I'm 95% certain that's correct from looking.
I'm 95% certain it's correct too, but
On the off chance we're wrong, I promise to put it in the show notes, esteemed audience. But I'm going to move it up to 98.9%.
Yeah. If I were someone who could actually multitask, I'd be checking it right now, but I can't do that. I don't multitask very well. So, yeah.
So I know that you got a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and then you also had an English major / environmental studies. So a little bit of everything, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I started, as a young person, I was an English major, and I was also really and am really interested in environmental issues. So that was a double major. And then when I was in my 40s, I actually went back to school and got the degree in nursing because it was my intention to be a midwife. I had really empowering childbirth experiences with, having my children. So I was going to be a midwife, and I went and got myself a nursing degree, which was the first step in New York State to being a midwife. And then really kind of found that I didn't go on for the midwifery degree because lots of reasons. But what I found was that I really enjoyed the studying and learning much more than the hands-on nursing. So I decided not to do that. But I do think that ultimately it led me to where I am, because when I realized that I wasn't going to use my nursing degree, I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I started writing a little bit for the American Journal of Nursing. And when I did that, that's when I started writing fiction also. It just like, it like inspired me in some, it like jiggled something loose that had been stoppered, you know? And I started writing fiction. Um, and then I became an agent. And now I kind of feel like I'm in a way like a midwife of books. You know, it's like I bring all these like book babies out into the world, and I, you know, kind of am with my authors in the same way, you know, supportive role as a midwife would be to someone giving birth. And actually, in Repairing the World, my debut middle grade novel, which we are talking about, there's a birth in it. So, you know, it just kind of all came together for me.
There's a lot of midwifery, a lot of environmental talk,
Yeah,
and then a lot of yoga. So I'm assuming you do yoga or are fond of yoga.
I do yoga. I've been a beginner yoga person for like 35 years. I'm happy being a beginner. I do. I find that it's very centering, and I'm someone who really cares about people in the world, and I feel like yoga kind of ties everything together in a way. I feel like I put every part of me into Repairing the World. I really do. I feel like there's so much of me in that book. When people read it who know me in real life, they just can't believe how much of me is in it. And I've written other things that's not the case. But I think it's also why it's kind of nerve-wracking and terrifying, dare I say, that it's going to be out in the world and people are going to be reading it, because, you know, if they don't like it, what does that mean about me? You know, and I know that as an agent, I tell my authors all the time, you know, your book is not you, but to myself. So yeah.